Hi there, and welcome back to Blighty, Fellowship of the Ring Pool, our weekly blether about matters musical. And I had just a great trip out to LA and to Nashville, which I just think is a wonderful place, a city dedicated to music. It's amazing how by creating a destination, you get this just huge kind of melting pot of people just playing. I mean, I know it's a very touristy thing to do, but just walking down Broadway and to see that many musicians just plowing away day in, day out, you're going to get really, really good doing that. And it's not surprising to me that the music scene in America has a very special form of virtuosity that I think is rarer in other climes. I love America. It's always great to go there. Such a wonderful place. Not without its challenges at the moment, which is kind of quite evident to see. A particular low point was I went to a music store in Nashville and I ordered an Uber. I bought a little pedal. I ordered an Uber to take me back to the hotel because it was kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I went out into the parking lot and there was just this high-pitched noise that was kind of, it was like a bit painful. And it was like someone was scraping some metal or something like that. And after about 3 minutes, I was just like, I actually have to go back into the music shop to wait for my Uber because I'm finding this sound too uncomfortable to live with. I went into the music shop and said, there's a horrible high-pitched noise out there. And they said, yeah, that's something that is played through the speakers of the parking lot to keep the homeless out, which was quite an alarming kind of almost like shark nets, but for humans. I'm not saying that homeless people are like sharks, but you know what I mean. Yeah, so that was kind of a bit of an eye-opener. I also had a funny experience at Nashville Airport where I ordered a Coke at a bar, and they said, you're not allowed to sit at the bar unless you're having alcohol. At which point I said, what if you're a recovering alcoholic? And they said, well, you shouldn't be sitting at a bar then. At which point everyone laughed around me. So that was a bit of a non-inclusive moment I enjoyed there. They had a point, though. So LA was great. So a few little updates. I'm off to Superbooth tomorrow. I'm getting a very early flight, so I'll be over there for a day and a half. And something that I'll say when people come live on the Google Meet, if you've got out there or you've seen news about stuff that's been released and you want me to find out more about those things on your behalf, I can be your eyes, ears and microphone. I'm going to do a little vlog whilst I'm there. So if there's anything you want me to check out, I know that Instro, for example, seems funny that there's a company based in Glasgow. I'm going all the way to Berlin to have a twiddle with their new desktop unit. But if there's anything you want me to check out or any recommendations you have for me, if you've been to Superbooth before, please do join in the conversation, which is linked in the video description below the YouTube video. For you guys on Instagram, if you pop over to YouTube, there's a Google Meet link if you want to join us live on the podcast. So update on the pause. It's going well. But as expected, it's taking a little longer than I'd hoped. We're hoping that we're going to be back live, fully live, with all of the new stuff and the new emphasis that Crow Hill is going to pursue at the end of this month, which I'm really excited about. I've been working really, really hard. I've been personally redesigning all the GUIs and the website and the web experience. And Simon, who's head of the network, and he moderates these chats. He's been working with me on creating a dedicated kind of resource hub, stroke blog, stroke journal, all of that stuff. So there's going to be lots of goodies, and I hope a new focus for Crow Hill that I think is more aligned to my original vision for it. So I'll keep you updated. If you have a look at the homepage on thecrowhillcompany.com, you'll see there's some stuff being teased, including something in a back pocket that's very, very exciting. We're going to have a new compositional challenge, which we will announce this time next week. So we do this podcast every week. So if you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please do. This week, I'm going to be launching a new segment, which is Film Club, where I suggest a film, or rather you guys eventually suggest films. We all spend the next week trying to give it a watch so that we can get together and talk about it. And the films that I'd like to pick and I'd like you guys to point out will be ones that not only have worthwhile films to watch, but also have some interesting talking points from a music or sound design point of view. And this week, the film, we'll probably do this once a month, so we'll announce the film and then talk about it the following week. So for this month's film club, it would be great if we can all have a look at the film Klute. That's spelt Klute. It's part of Alan J. Pakula's Paranoia trilogy, which includes the what's it called? What's the one about the Watergate thing? All the President's Men, and I've just not the conversation. No, it's the parallax view. So it's a trilogy of very Cold War-y, paranoid thrillers, and very much in the kind of 70s style that I really enjoy. There's a central performance by Jane Fonda, which makes you understand why she was such a sought-after actress in her heyday, but also an absolutely fascinating score featuring some instruments that I've never heard in any other piece of music, let alone film score. And if you look into that and work out how they made marimbas sound like they were being pitch bent, it's quite a fascinating story there. So I'm going to hopefully dig some trivia out. But if you have a look at that film, and then there'll be something that we can all talk about together next week, and maybe I'll pluck out a couple of key cues. There's also use of a female voice in it that I think is particularly idiomatic of that era. We've got a bit of a slightly topical film on in the background, which is directed by the same director as Dirty Harry. I forget his name, but there's some real similarities between the Dirty Harry score by Lalo Schifrin and the score for Klute, which isn't by Lalo Schifrin. It's another gentleman who his name betrays me, but we will certainly dig out all the trivia and info on that this time next week. So a reason to dig out a copy of Klute. I know for certain it's on Apple TV films, but I'm sure there's many different outlets for it, like Amazon, stuff like that. So next week, talking about Klute, but also announcing our new competition. And if you didn't catch it last week, we have a competition winner for the branding of this podcast, and that exercise we're going to document, turning that track into a master and into an audio package that we use for forthcoming episodes, alongside some animation that I'm doing for the opening credit sequence, which should be a lot of fun. But also there was so many amazing entries for that competition that we will also be using some other music, and we will approach people as and when we want to license it for these different segments that we'll be introducing, first of which is the Film Club. So before I invite people in, Alan, do we have any questions left over from last week? I'm sure there's probably a few, because we had Joseph Holiday on last week. If you didn't catch that podcast, do check it out, because he had a lot of very, very fascinating stuff to share. So, Alan.
What misconceptions do people have about being a media composer?
what misconceptions they have about being a media composer. Well, I think that one of the main misconceptions is that a little bit like Heinz tomato ketchup implies that the main ingredient is tomato, which would be correct, but also water. The description of the title media composer implies that most of the work that you're asked to do is compose, where actually I would say it's less than 5% of your job, even possibly less than 1%. And as a consequence, a lot of people think just being a good composer is the predominant requirement for that job. People maybe take it a step further, feel that they're good at working to picture, so applying music to picture, which is definitely something you need to be good at. But I think that basically it should be, the title of the job should be called Head of Music Department. You are an HOD, a Head of Department. And your responsibility there is to the person who pays your wages. So where the director's concerned, they will be interested in you and usually will have the end word on who is going to be the composer. They will be interested in your work as a composer, as a maker of original music. The producer who is paying you, their interest is for you to provide them with a score that they can legally use, so you haven't made it with other people's music or other people's recordings, which also makes you legally liable for the master recordings. To provide them with a set of master recordings on time, on deadline, and within the budget that you are assigned, without any lawsuits chasing your score around. And for that, the job is therefore something that is totally experiential. And the only way of gaining experience in being a media composer is by giving that job time. So often the most common way of moving into media composition is by assisting other composers so you can learn from them. The technology changes rapidly, the workflows change rapidly, the politics change rapidly, and the hierarchy within making any production is quite a complex one and differs wildly between TV, film, and computer games. So I think that a big misconception is I know how to create music. I know how to create music quickly, which is probably the second most important part of the composition component, which is a tiny part of the job. I know how to synchronize music to picture. I know how to work with musicians. I know how to work with an engineer who can mix the score. All of these different components that would comprise composing is just a very, very, very small part. And those can be learnt and can be taught. The aspects of being an HOD today in 2025 comes from experience. So I think that to round that up into a misconception is that you can come out of college and become a media composer. That is very, very unlikely to happen without any track record, because it is not the director, your busy friend, who is going to vouch for you. It is the producer who is going to hire you, and that's going to be based on your track record, your experience. So I think a common way that you go from being an assistant to being an actual head of department is often when a composer is in trouble, needs your help, needs you to step in, or indeed when a composer has been fired and you've got 2 weeks to write a score and they can't find any other composers with the track record they usually require. That's certainly how it happened for me and how it happens for a lot of people I talk to. The other routine is to be an artist, to be a recording artist, to be touring, this, that, and the other, to make a name and a following for yourself, and to be invited in to becoming a head of department, usually at which point you will be assigned a music supervisor who will make sure that these things are delivered on time. Other elements of media composition is the ability to work to brief, the ability to take notes and action them, and the willingness to accept numerous recuts of the footage and the ability to solve those problems. But that, I think, is the common misconception. I think the secondary one is where getting work is concerned, is this misconception that there is a work market somewhere on the internet where you can go and go, I'm a great composer, here's my music, give me some work. It doesn't work like that. It's based on your track record, and the way you get a track record is by making yourself known, available to other productions and composers and producers, and to find out what you can offer them to gain the necessary experience and to work yourself up the ladder. But it is, as I say, by and large, an experiential one. It differs slightly from, ironically, directors and producers, who often can just kind of fall into that role and can surround themselves with teams of people, Orson Welles being a great example. He says that he made the greatest film ever made, Citizen Kane, through sheer ignorance and people and not knowing that these things were not normal or possible. That is not the case with film composers, not in my experience and not in the countless composers that I have met. So that was a very long answer. Alan, should we invite some people on so I can stop waffling about? And it's always lovely to see people coming in to join this new Google thingy. I'm going to do this. It's the triple thing. Hey, Jay, how are you doing? Is your mic... Hey, mate.
I'm sad, dude.
Why?
I had a big show last Saturday, so I didn't have time to get on the podcast contest situation. And I don't know if you can share or talk about this, but if you guys saw the Splice takeover Spitfire, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Well, I'm not allowed to talk about it. That's basically my answer to that, Jay. All I can say is my experience with Spitfire was an experience that if I was asked to do it all over again, I absolutely would. It was some of the most amazing times of my life, and I got to meet many, many, many amazing and work with many, many amazing and talented people. And that is how I will reflect on my time at Spitfire, which is no more. I haven't been involved in Spitfire for 2 years. And when I say that, I really mean that. I mean, I, like other people, have looked on Companies House to see how they're doing and stuff like that. So I just wish them all the best and hope that a company that was named in honor of my granddad, I hope that spirit is taken on. Other than that, I know absolutely nothing about it. And
I just hope we don't lose our stuff, because personally, like, the BBC Symphony Orchestra is my favorite thing ever. Is like the thing that is my workhorse, and Albion 1. And I'm only concerned that we're gonna lose it randomly. That would suck, because we paid for it.
Yeah.
But
I totally understand, and if I could answer that, I would, Jay. But it's not just that I'm not allowed. I literally have no idea what the plans are. I know that there's some really lovely people who are still there, and they will do their darndest to look after the customer. And I mean, Splice is a very successful company, and it does what it does through listening to customers and giving them hopefully what they need and want. But that's all I can really say, Jay. If anything, when setting up Crow Hill, I just wanted to take what I did at Spitfire and carry on doing that. And the magic for me is stuff like this, is just talking to and being part of a community. And so, if anything, there will be a doubling down on that. And and also, you know, when we relaunch, which has a lot of, that was totally coincidental. There was no link to the two events. It just happened to happen in the same month. But when we relaunch, I think that my passion is going to be a lot more evident for the direction I want to take it in. Not quite ready to announce who my partner is, but as and when I do, I think that you'll agree that that's a very exciting perspective. And Jay, you know, the thing that you mentioned is something that is the thing I'm proudest of in my entire professional career would be Labs and BBC SO and the and Piano Book. And so I wish them all the best with it. I'm sorry there's nothing more I can say there. But, you know, as you know, I've not been involved for the last over 2 years.
Yeah, I figured. I was just more like opening that. I just wanted to put out that comment because I haven't been here in a while, and it was like, it took me by surprise. I do have a question that I will save for later while you say hi to everybody, though.
Hi. I don't know if you caught my waffly preamble, but I'm off to Super Booth tomorrow. So I don't know if anyone's been in attendance or has seen anything that's been launched, but if there's anything anyone wants me to check out, I'm going to do a vlog and check out some stuff. I know I'm going to head over to Instro. They've got a new desktop device that looks very interesting. So if there's any suggestions of stuff to look at, stuff to check out, it's going to be my first Super Booth. So I'm looking forward to that. And so I hope you enjoyed the chat with Joseph Holliday last week. And I got to visit that studio, which is just nuts, man. You take one look at that studio and you just go, there's only one thing that can happen here, and that's punk. But really enjoyed that studio. So I don't know if anyone had any thoughts of that. Good to see you, Mandy. Good to see you, Ellery. Back again. I'm glad that the interlopers haven't put you guys off. How are you doing, Ellery? Because the weather out in the States was absolutely shite, but it was good here in the UK. How's it in the middle of it's the Irish Channel, isn't it, you're in?
No, it's the Irish Sea. So we're like halfway between Ireland and England. The weather here has been great. I've been able to swim every day, so it's been awesome.
In the Irish Sea?
No, in the pool.
Okay. Having said that, I do swim in the North Sea here, which is quite incredible, really. But the North Sea is actually relatively warm because it's a floodplain that covers a piece of land that used to be called Doggerland.
Doggerland, yes. Yes.
They find lots of things there. But how's everything going for you? You all right?
Do you know, I've had such an exciting time. I'm quite new to this compared to everyone else, I think. But I've been very, very fortunate on the Isle of Man with how things are set up in the community here. We've got an arts council who supports people with all sorts of things, and it was through the arts council that I got my first gig, if you will, to do some music for a little dance film. It was like a fun little project, and then I think off the back of that, as you were talking about experience and getting yourself out there, off the back of that, the youth orchestra reached out to me to compose some music for them. And I mean, it's crazy, right? It's a bunch of students. They're still players. They're real live players. And the experience of moving from just working on the computer with software and libraries to actually hearing how the stuff that you've composed is being played and interpreted by these young people, it's been quite remarkable. I'm learning so much. Like, I can't read any music or anything like that, so working with Darko has been absolutely entertaining and fun, but I'm learning so much. And then I got this book off of a video that you put out some years ago, which I was using to learn. And I the moment you mentioned that book, I was like, I better get me that book. And I've only started reading it now because I've been working with the orchestra, and it's like, it makes so much sense now. Yeah. So it's all coming full circle. So yeah, exciting stuff.
That's absolutely brilliant news, Ellery. Fantastic. And good to see you've got a copy of Walter Piston's orchestration there, which is very handy. And the one that is great to get, but it's really expensive now. What's the one that...
Oh, I've got that one.
The Samuel Adler one.
I've got that one as well.
Yeah, I love what he's so grumpy. I love what he said about the contrabass trombone. He said it's too difficult it's too difficult to play, so don't write for it. Like, thanks, mate. That's a help. Could you at least give me the range? Have a go. Yeah. I saw Philip Glass was interviewed on a YouTube recently, and he said something I think really sensible about what we do. He said, art is about looking. And poetry is about speaking, and music is about listening. And in order to be a really good composer, you should listen. But he also talks about the importance of playing and working with live players, because it makes you understand music so much better. And a lot of that will be from you, Ellery, listening to what happens. And what I always find fascinating when I work with an orchestra is stuff that the orchestra does that you've done in your samples that make it sound so much better, and then stuff that you've done with samples that the orchestra can't play at all. And yes. That is always a really interesting thing. Those kind of, when you write those pizzicato lines that go and it just sounds like
very humbling.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that is one of the real highs I've had, because I don't read music like you, and the real highs I've had is and as you say, humbling, is to acquire the empathy required to write for live musicians, which I think is a very useful experiential tool. So Mandy, I was almost in Dallas, but didn't quite make it. And the weather was appalling in Nashville. How's it been in Dallas?
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of rain and storms, but it's nice today finally. So, did you have bad weather?
Yeah, terrible weather. And I got to experience the opposite of Southern hospitality. I was meeting a friend in the airport in Nashville, and I just sat to have a Coke or a Pepsi at this bar in the airport, and they refused to sell me anything that wasn't alcoholic. And then said I shouldn't be sitting there if I was a recovering alcoholic. So, oh my goodness. But I did have some lovely brisket out there, and I do think that Nashville it's just very interesting to see a place that's dedicated to music. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. Well, I'm glad you had a good trip. Yay!
Yeah, no, it was great. LA was also really cloudy and horrible as well. So I think I missed the Scottish summer, which only tends to last about 3 or 4 days, whilst I was out there. So I don't know if anyone has any kind of topics, any ideas for Super Booth, things that I should be looking out for, things that have been announced. Jay, you had a question that you had in your back pocket. Why don't you throw that out there?
Right. Because before we all came in, you were mentioning about how as a composer is the way we get work is different. And I kind of let me see how I phrase this. I feel like sometimes, at least in my case, right now, this is the case. I got to a desperate place. It's like, I need work now. Like I gotta pay rent. There's things to be paid. I need to find something immediately. And I think I wanted to put out there the conversation of what do we do in those cases? This is my set of skills is this much, which is music and sound design and stuff like that, and audio work. And for example, in my case, I'm basically unhireable at this point because I have a degree in music production. I don't have any college of any kind, and my resume is basically a bunch of customer service and then nothing. on paper. Like on paper, I'm basically useless. But if you think about it, like in here, there's way more. So it's like, kind of want to open that conversation. What do you do in those moments of desperation? I need to figure it out now, kind of situation, you know?
Well, I think that what I mean, being on this podcast is a good start, because I think that really where help is concerned, it'll always be from other composers. You know, I've met literally hundreds, if not over 1,000 composers of all, you know, all the way from the top to, you know, just starting out. And not one of them have ever talked about their career without mentioning at least one other composer, someone who vouched for them. So that's something that I would do is work out what you can offer, you know, whether it's making some samples or you know, assisting people in archiving or whatever. That would be my first port of call. The thing that is really shocking about when you start working professionally is that you feel you're always, okay, I've got this job, now that's me sorted. Where actually there is this thing about building relationships, and then you enter into these horrific production cycles that take forever. You know, most directors you'll work with, if it's on a feature, they would have been working on it maybe 2-3 years before they entertain, you know, and shooting it, before they entertain a composer. They really love the work that you've done, and then the phone goes dead for 3 or 4 years. That's because that's how long it takes for the production cycle to come back round. It's a bit shorter with TV, but something that was really alarming when I started out is I had about a year, maybe 18 months, where I didn't stop working, and I felt, that's me, I'm on my way. But for some reason, all of those cycles actually synchronized, which basically meant everyone went into kind of pre-production and development for a year and a half. All of my contacts, all of my relationships, and I was unemployed for 18 months. So I think it's being really aware of those cycles, and when you need money quickly, possibly not investing in things that will take a long time to bear you fruit. So I would get in touch with some composers and see if they need any help assisting and stuff like that will be my recommendation. The other thing is, I think it's really good to, and I don't know how library companies are working at the moment, and not all library companies or production music companies are built the same. But I certainly have always had really good relationships with like KPM and Extreme and stuff like that. And if I've ever fallen shy of work or cash, there's always a phone I can pick up and go, listen, can you throw me some bones? And they understand their business model is about it's the in-between times where they get composers to do work for them, certainly working successful composers. So they understand the value of being able to offer you that 300, 400 quid per submission that you give in. So that's something that I would certainly, if you don't have those relationships set up, Jay, I would get those sorted out. Get yourself some contacts that you can speak to at library companies, and they will be certainly the most agile way of you earning some money in the very short term. That's as good as
for that. You might need a catalog of things that you could throw in, because I feel like everything I have right now is too old and dated, or just I don't like it anymore, kind of thing.
Well,
but I have a hard drive die on me, so a lot of tracks got lost.
Okay, you're not having a good week.
No, I'm having, and last week was I'm not.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about stuff that you don't necessarily like. The library tracks that I've done that make me the most money, were usually the ones, excuse my language, but usually ones I farted out. Stuff that's kind of generic tends to work quite well. You know, I think I've said this dozens of times, but there's a library music composer I know who has a very large house in Hampstead, which is a very smart area of London. And I think something like 70% of his income is from a track called Low Subby Drone. Does what it says on the tin. But always when also, offering, when thinking about your value, this is the thing. It's like, it's not how people can offer you work. It's about the value you can add to someone else. And I don't know what your specific, angles are, Jay, but there's if there's certain instruments that you have that maybe other people don't have, if there's if I don't know, it's all often like when I see guitarists plugging away using string samples, just like, what are you doing? Get on the guitar. Most composers can't play the guitar. Listen to Gustavo Santaolalla and do some stuff like that. So I would lean into where you can add value to other people's work. And library music, if you lean into your skills, I think you'll probably find you'll be able to create stuff the stuff that comes easily out of you, that comes naturally to you, and you'll be able to sausage meat that. So it's a horrible description, but the stuff you find easy will be the stuff that will be applicable, because it won't be you trying to sound like someone else. Charles, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I wanted to remark on Jay's question. I think it boils down to this particular issue, which is correlative to what Christian said. You don't have to tell me, you have to tell yourself. What is my core competence? And then focus on that. And then, concomitant to that, research libraries, like Christian suggested, and find out what their catalogs are like, and find out if your core competence can be linked to what they're doing already in libraries or add value to the libraries they have. And then you kind of strategize yourself and say, okay, I'm going to approach these people. Probably most of them would accept materials, say 2 or 3 tracks, give them links. And for God's sakes, make your email very short. Don't slather it with all kinds of filigree because they won't read it. And then send it out there. But instead of just saying, well, I'll just send it to this one library, choose, I would say, 3 or 4. And in the 3 or 4, send each of them different cues. Because let's say that you have 3 or 4. Number 1 might say, I love this guy. And number 2 says, I love this guy. But if you send them both the same cues, you could zero sum yourself and neutralize the possibilities of doing business with either one of them. So when you do your, what I call the dance in front of the tent, if you know anything about that carnival business with, excuse me, ladies, with the strippers, you got to do your dance in front of the tent to get them inside the tent. Now, by the way, I should add, when I was young, I don't do this anymore. I could care less. I've got 2 daughters and a wife. Who cares? I went inside the tent when I was younger. It's not worth the money. But anyway, think about what I said. Just focus on your core competence. I assume your main instrument is guitar?
I'm a bass player, but yeah, bass guitars.
Okay.
And yeah, point to that Christian, because I do I play in weird tunings because I can and wanted to. So
there you go. I mean, stop right there. Weird tunings. That's a core competence.
Yeah.
And then the little codicil that I want to add to this speech, and then I'm going to shut up. Learn how to tell a story in, say, 2 minutes. Make an assumption that you're telling a story. about a character, about a moment, about an environment, and whatever other categories that you can come up with. And start practicing even after we finish today. And I think you'll be on your way, lad. Okay?
Thank you, Charles. That was absolutely brilliant. Core competence will often be the thing that you go, oh God, I'm not doing this again. It will often be the thing that you find easy. Something that I always return to is if I could describe my core competence, is I'm a drum programmer. It doesn't interest me. It bores me to tears. But it's something that I can do very quickly, and it's something that other people value. And that's a great way to, if you're going to sell something of yours, it can be the thing that you maybe want to get away from, And I know a good quote for me is that Hans Zimmer called me up, name drop, plop. We should have a little kind of an icon or a little jingle for a name drop. He called me up and he said, everyone's copying my percussion style, so I want to release my drums as sample libraries, because then it means I won't do them again, even if I'm asked to, which is kind of quite interesting. So he monetized something in order to stop doing it, because it was something that he felt that he'd gone into a bit of a... So, if there's something that you want to tie a ribbon on and go, this is something I want to move away from, flog it. Don't just abandon it. Merlin.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Quick comment to Jay for your question. First of all, I heavily want to underscore what's been said already. I absolutely agree with that. Added on that, I've been in that position you described many times. I'm lucky to have another education and occupation that I can sometimes rely on for money, but that wasn't always the case. And so for me, I have to say, while I think that what's been said before works and can be the solution, at the times I was in that position, I could never figure that out. I knew that stuff. Maybe it was my brain, maybe it was circumstances. I don't care really, but I couldn't make that work. And so I needed to find something else. And what was working for me was, this is a horrible buzzword, but it's diversification in a particular way, because you can write music, and that means you know your way around audio equipment, you know your way around a DAW, you know your way about a microphone. And so I very quickly in my community found people who just needed that for the moment, whether that was a day helping out as a sound guy in a set, or finding people who make podcasts or who are voice actors who need someone who can just quickly EQ a voice or something like that. But, for us, that's a 25-minute gig, and we're happy to get paid whatever we get for that. For them, it's an unsurmountable obstacle. And these kinds of relationships, which is what that turns into, lead, I think, to what Christian was, kind of talking about too. It's like you help somebody out, they remember you. You can help someone in a pinch, that's good for you. And we have a ton of media production happening at the moment. If you find a few people who can, get on their good side by doing good work and, being ethical and a likable person, then you can build something with that. The other side of that for me was, I just got a day job at some point. There was times I was bussing tables. There was times I was working bars. I just did that because at the moment, I couldn't find a way to turn all the helpful advice that I got at that time too into something I was able to do or could realize. So I could probably talk for another hour on that, but Jay, shoot me an email or something if you want to do that. I don't want to take up so much time.
Send it over. Well, on the day job, yeah, for reasons that are too long to explain, I can't figure out the day job.
I get that 100%.
Yeah, so I'm like, I have to make it work. Something that I probably didn't mention is that I do sound design. So a lot of the work that I've had last year is actually not music, but Foley, basically doing Foley for ads and media. I'm on a little low slump, but I'm that's like a thing that I do. That's actually probably one of my core competencies. Not really music, but like sound design, pure sound design, Foley for media, for ads. I do a lot of beers and alcohol ads, and it's just a bunch of bottles clinking all over the place. It's funny, but I do keep my bottles just for that. Because that's something something that almost everybody who makes music could potentially do. Just throwing that out there. You guys can do it. It's very easy. As long as you have like an idea of how things sound around you, it's something that anybody with a good amount of knowledge from a DAW can do.
Yeah.
And if I may tag onto there, I actually wanted to pose a question. Is that okay?
Of course, yes, please.
Much spice here. So, based on my question from last week, a kind of a two-parted question that I wanted to just pose to everybody came to me, which is, I have a little friend group, and we meet once a month in a call kind of like this to give each other feedback. And that's very much in a sort of more artistic rather than a composer sort of setting. But as I was like asking last week about making connections more in this kind of space, a friend from there actually posted me and was like, hey, why don't you do that there? And so therefore, part A of my question is, I don't know of anybody outside of me, of, you fine people here, actually feel like you would like that, hang out with a bunch of peers like this. Everybody gets to whatever, show a track that they're working on or that they made, and maybe provide a little context and what they're looking for or something. And then everybody who wants to can chime in a kind of moderated fashion, like we do here on the podcast. I would love that. I would even love to facilitate something like that. But I wanted to first kind of gauge interest because, maybe everybody has their group and you guys don't need that. So I figured I'll just ask. I definitely need that. I want that. And the second part of that question is to you, Christian, like maybe we could even make something like that happen within the Crowhill community. I think that would be amazing. But I just wanted to hear what everybody else is sort of thinking about that idea. I would love that personally.
Yeah, I think it's a absolutely fantastic idea, Merlin, and absolutely, if you're interested in talking about that further, I 100% would be behind it. Just so everyone knows that the reason I waffle sometimes is I basically speak until someone holds their hand up. So if you want to hit the icon and contribute, please do. There we go, Ethan. Hey.
Oh, hiya, you all right? I can't hear anyone at the moment. Can you hear me at the moment?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ethan.
Cool. Okay, so it's about Super Booth 2025. Just been looking at the list. It'd be quite cool for me if you could, in your vlog, you could do, who was it again? API, analog gear for mixing, mastering, that kind of thing. Nord, because they've brought out the stage piano, and the third one is anything to do with SSL.
Okay,
that'd be quite cool.
SSL, Nord, duly noted.
And API, as well, because our mixing engineer is using the software version of the console. We're using SSL console, SSL EV2, I believe it is. I'm crap like that. I forget everything I do.
Well, thanks for that, Ethan. I will certainly look out those for us on the vlog that I'm going to make. Yeah, and Merlin, I think that is it's a really good idea, and it'd be really interesting to see how people respond to that. And I think there's a lot to be said for, again, looking is something that I've experienced on Piano Book, is where people combine their core competencies. So you've got someone who can make some great recordings, combining their skills with someone who's really good at coding, and then someone who's really good at GUI design. And I think that would be really interesting to see if there are any collaborations that can be formed. These things, they tend to be stuff that happened organically. Or as someone said once, it's like being a stepdad, like forcing your your step brothers and stepsisters to kind of like each other. But creating a kind of an environment where those organic relationships can form, I think would be really fantastic. And I think, it might be fun to do a thing where people pass stuff around, experiencing that thing that happens like in computer games and stuff, and that happens between producers and all of that kind of stuff, of seeing how we can improve stuff and talking about how we went about using these things, and from that naturally will come the costly exercise of going, shit, I need that plugin now or that bit of kit. But that's always a risk when you come onto these kind of forums. But yeah, Merlin, I'll drop you an email and see how we can move that forward. Because I think it's a really fantastic idea. And, there's something about, when I was working at Spitfire, I would absolutely dread when Andy Blaney, this guy who basically is the best orchestral programmer on the planet, when he would submit a demo, because I just knew that it would make me feel just terribly insignificant as a technologist and as an arranger and a composer and as a programmer. But what it did is it made me work harder the next demo I got. So I think it can be, so often with what we're doing, when we're asked to write music or do sound design or whatever, is to do what we've already done. So often we're not actually pushing ourselves. And I think that actually by working closely with other composers, there can be a lot of inspiration there, not least determination and that kind of stuff. So yeah, really, really good stuff. But it is difficult when, like, the rent needs to be paid, and as we all know, we work, and then it goes out there, the contract isn't even signed, and it takes forever to be paid and all of that kind of stuff. Nick, how are you doing?
Hey, yeah, I've been kind of jumping around a little bit. I went to can you hear me? Am I coming through? Okay. Yeah, so I went to Prague in mid-April for the Composer Summit, which was pretty fun. Like, it was a whole week of concerts and lectures, and and everybody was there, like Harry Gregson Williams and Michael Dana and a bunch of other composers and music supervisors this time. Even the Marvel people were there, which was curious. And they were like, well, look, guys, we talked to 7 agents. That's kind of like, because people were obviously asking, like, how do we pitch music to you guys? And they go, well, we don't take people off the street, as it were. Yeah, but otherwise it was pretty cool. Like, there were concerts, and the Squid Game concert was actually really cool. The guy came out, the John Jail came out. He's a really interesting character. Played a show on a rotating stage, did like the Squid Game soundtrack, played guitar and keyboards and then things, and it was pretty rocking. So that's what I've been up to, basically. And on another note, like on work notes, I submitted something for a project that I'm working on, and we've kind of gone through a few rounds of iterations, but they emailed me 3 days ago to set up a meeting for tomorrow, and they're like, let's set up a meeting, and we have some feedback. And like, isn't that the worst? Like, they did not say anything. And like on Monday, they emailed me going, hey, let's chat Friday, we have feedback. And I'm sitting here just going, kind of running every possible scenario in my head. So yeah, so how do you guys deal with that if you ever run into this? I usually try to ask them to at least email me the feedback, or at least give me a heads up of what's coming, so that's
yeah live feedback is whoa. I mean, a lot of people, I know some producers who don't allow email feedback. I I mean, I've been doing this for nearly 30 years, and I will always say, let it drain. The reaction isn't. It's got nothing to do with it. Your personal reaction has got nothing to do with it. And there's a lizard brain bit that happens. It's just ego. It's a threat. It's just a basic threat to your security, the food on your table, all of that kind of stuff. And you just have to let it drain. And I really look forward to notes. I absolutely love notes because I just see them as puzzles. And as I've gained experience as a composer, I hate sounding immodest, but I've gained the experience necessary to be able to deal with notes in a way that is both dealing with the note, but also dealing with it without destroying my own music, doing it in a way that is artistically and musically coherent, isn't just adding a layer of scary symbols or whatever. So I actually love notes. However, they still hurt. They still sting, and there's nothing you can do about your lizard brain. It's just a basic. It's an instinctual to some form of threat. So just don't, whatever you do, reply based on your reaction. It takes about 24 hours to drain away. So live feedback is tough, man. But I think maybe if anything they will give you the worst experience of your life. And then you can go, that's the worst experience of my life. My worst was in front of quite a large number of people. A director said, Christian, I imagine you have good taste in music. And I went, yeah, I like to think so. And he said, well, why have you checked in at the door for my picture? Which was in front of my assistant and the producers. And it was...
That's hardcore.
Yeah, I since found out... I since found out that this See You Next Tuesday, in a former life, was a music critic. So he took great pleasure in issuing absolutely blistering kind of Simon Cowell style comments on thing. So there's that at one end, and then my other worst set of notes was I was working with someone, and this was on a library album, and he was musical enough to count bars or measures. And he would just give me a list of measures, and it would just say rewrite. And you're like, what? And it would be like between beat 16 and beat 3 of 3 bars, rewrite. And you're just like, what an idiot. Anyway, yeah, so it's letting it drain, letting your ego get out of the way, but also learning how to deal with idiots.
No, I'm hoping because it's also like it's a client. I can't disclose anything because they made me tape my camera when I went to visit their facilities. So anyway, I'm hoping for this to be a long-term situation. So I'm gotta play it cool.
Mantra-like, if they're giving you notes, they want you to carry on working for them. That is right. By the essence of them giving notes, you are not being fired. It's when you send something and you don't hear anything for days. Be scared. Be very, very scared.
Thank you, Christian.
No worries. Jay and Charles, I'll come back to you in a sec, but we've got a couple of people who haven't spoken yet. So, Michael, how are you doing, sir?
Hi, Christian. Hi, everyone. Hope you've all had a good week. Just got a couple of questions. Christian, you were talking many weeks ago about setting up Crowell as a creative hub. Can you just emphasize it? Go talk into a bit more detail about what your vision is for that.
Yeah, I just see it as a place where people can visit for resources. So things like anything from these blag sheets that I make to, and these are not things that you have to pay for, I've been building some door templates to share with people, tutorials, an aggregation of the stuff that we do on YouTube and an organization of that, journals, interviews with people, all of that kind of stuff, to a forum, a place where people can communicate, share work, and hopefully collaborate with each other. a place where people can come and find inspiration and opportunity. The way we set it up, because the way that things were financed and my state of finances when I set it up, we came out of the gates very much flogging samples, and that will be the way that Crowhill will be able to wash its face. But it isn't going to be it isn't what I would like people to describe us as. So that's what I'm hoping to do is to build on the network possibilities. I don't like using the word community because it gets a bit dreadlocks and carrot cake, if you know what I mean. But it's great how many people kind of are laughing to that because they know exactly what I mean. But so just a safe house to come and do stuff and get involved. So a big part of the website design is what is ostensibly a blog, but something that's tagged. So if there's certain things you're looking for, you can find stuff. And what we will be launching with, which is kind of teased with it's a picture of a back pocket. What we'll be launching with is something that will enable me to impart some of my expertise and knowledge to a greater good, and touches on something that Jay brought up. But I'm going to just tease it for the time being. I'll start talking about it more when we're going to do the recording sessions for that. So
is this just an online thing, or is this something that you vision someone going up to Edinburgh to collaborate with you? Is like in the studio? What in terms?
Yeah.
Is it that?
I've just seen a guy who looks like you're at Santiago. Are you on a tube or is it a metro of some sort? That's awesome. I love a variety of locations. So Michael, yes, these are things that I'm been toying with. The idea of opening this space up a bit more, doing in-person workshops, but also something I've just come back from Tennessee. I've been thinking about having agents who are based in different parts of the world. Who are given maybe small budgets to be able to do local workshops and stuff like that, and organise live events like these. So more composer walks, more live interaction, and something that I will be, from a content point of view, pivoting a little bit more towards is about recording, because I really, really do think that we can certainly be responsible for encouraging a new golden age of music now that people really, really are not going to want AI. So I do think musicianship, virtuosity, and the somewhat lost art of recording is something that I would like to is a competency I have that I would like to investigate further. So hopefully, Michael, that's not too waffly an answer for you.
No, it's fine. That's fine. I like your style, Christian. No problem. Second question is: has anyone here, including yourself, Christian, used BBC Uploader? Now, for me, I'm trying to figure out in my musical creativity what kind of musician I am, whether I'm a media man or songwriter or composer. I'm trying to figure out what is me. That's what I'm trying to figure out. In terms of songwriting, has anyone ever used BBC Uploader? Have you ever had experience of anything uploading your tracks to someone like BBC or?
No, I've not heard of it, to be honest.
BBC Uploader?
No.
Okay, so it's the BBC website. You can upload. I think it's three tracks. If you've got 3 tracks to singing or whatever, you can upload them, and they'll listen to them. And if they like them, they will then possibly put you on radio station, and maybe eventually come up with a contract. But you want to check it out, BBC Uploader. No one's experienced that? No? Okay.
No.
Well, it's fair enough.
But, I mean, sounds very interesting. And if they say they are listening to them, then good on them. But I imagine they're getting a lot of uploads. So
it's called BBC. It's called BBC Introducing, mate.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's called BBC Introducing.
Okay.
Have you ever used it before?
I what myself? No, not yet. I will be though.
So you're thinking about using it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's part of BBC's. They have a lot of people don't realise that BBC is a private company, but they have a royal charter and they have to do things like this. So it sounds like a very interesting potential thing. And
because Christian, I think you said that you didn't get anywhere with Spotify in terms of making any money out of it, or you're not getting on with uploading your music. So I'm a little bit unsure, with record deals, whether there's any money in it, whether you're signing away your composition work and not getting anything out of it. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think you just go to Snoop Dogg and ask why he's doing the kind of adverts that he's doing at the moment, because no one earns any money out of it. To think that Spotify is a revenue creation platform for artists is highly mistaken. I would recommend Bandcamp above that. I would recommend Patreon. I would recommend not getting a record contract until you're very successful. But Spotify it's not a platform designed to compensate artists. And I think that if there is a reason to put stuff on Spotify, it's as a place to send someone where there's some links. It's to have a presence. But I just think, honestly, I've made my views towards Spotify and the slightly bottom-faced CEO. Speaking as someone with a bottomy face myself, I don't like the things that he said about the creation of music and how we should do it at greater volumes, and if we want to earn money, we should do 7 albums a year. It's just, to me, that is not a culturally responsible thing to suggest. I don't think you tell fucking Paul McCartney to do that, and he'll tell you where to stick it. Martin, I'm absolutely confident that Paul McCartney, if he was told, if you want to earn money out of recording music, do 7 albums a year, fuck off. Excuse my French. Martin, over to you.
Hello. Sorry, I'm sick and my voice is broken, but very happy to be here. I had a question for you also. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm finishing film music studies in Paris at the Conservatoire. And I have a question because we have composers who are in the business and they regularly come to us to say, you should specialize in a genre in order to gain money and be in the business. And this thought is a bit demotivating for me because I feel like the pleasure of being a media composer is to touch on a variety of things. And I wanted to have your view on that because I wondered, is it indeed a good plan to specialize, or shall we still try to diversify in terms of genre, I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good question. And I would consider myself a journeyman. And that's because I do a diverse number of styles and stuff. So I've always enjoyed this is my job. I'm a craftsman. I make tables. But I'm not an artist because my lack of focus and the number of times I've shat all over my IMDb page. There was a point where I had these really interesting films, and I did this big French film called Le Rafle, and it was all looking really cool. And then I said yes to Richard Hammond's Blast Lab, which was one of his less successful things he did after Top Gear. I guess it's how you want your work to become. The other thing to do, I think, is to try lots of different things to get work whilst it's coming in. Hans Zimmer is a great example of someone who does a multitude of styles, always has done. But I think a way of achieving success is focus. And I would certainly say if you are looking to get work, not just as an assistant and work your way up through the ranks, but actually to be hired for specificity of your artistry, then I think it's very good to focus. And so, I quote someone like Gustavo Santaolalla, who has had an incredibly and very rich artistic career by doing stuff that is very specific and specific to him and in his style. So that's a kind of a on the fence answer, really. I think you can do it both ways, but I think that you do run the risk of being a journeyman and therefore maybe not achieving the heights that you would dream of, winning awards, that kind of stuff, if you are somewhat, dare I say, artistically compromised. So that would be my answer to that. And I'm just going to go to Pavel, and then I will come back to you, Jay, Charles, and Merlin. Pavel, how are you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing well, thank you. How are you all doing?
And please, don't let me waffle. Do answer the questions that have been raised by others as well, if you want to do that along with answering any questions, Pavel. Sorry, over to you.
No problem. I just have a short remark about what Michael asked about the revenue from Spotify and so on. I had much more luck actually earning money from a copyright protection company for like actual live performances of my music, much more from like YouTube or Bandcamp or Spotify. Actually, Bandcamp is a very good advice, because Bandcamp, I like Bandcamp, and it has a lot of great like little happenings and things and options for you to promote your music. But yeah, I've been lucky that my music been performed live a lot, and I earn a little bit from that too. And also just have a short note about Martin's question about the specialization. I actually, for the longest time ever, I wanted to specialize in horror music because it's closest to what I always did, because I was studying contemporary classical music, and that usually sounds like horror music to everyone. So I was thinking I'm going to use that as my strength. And yeah, it didn't work out, because I found myself that I really need to sometimes compose something melodic. So I also just need to do more things just to keep myself, fresh and occupied with stuff.
Yeah. I think being open-minded is a good one. I got into doing this because I wanted to underscore robots and spaceships, and I did that, and I found it really boring. And then they gave me a job of underscoring a Belgian detective with a waxed moustache, and that's the happiest. I found the joy of melody writing. So yeah, being open-minded. But if you use my brother's example, he's probably one of the most successful computer games composers in the country. He just had a laser focus on that, and how not only on creating the relationships, but how he created a workflow with his business partner, with his writing partner, Alexis, on how they went about doing things, making their own instruments, making their own sounds, but using that in a way that works really well with application to computer games. So I think there's many ways of doing it. I'm more of a tart. If you
can I just ask you, is that true, or did I confuse it with something? Did you work with your brother on the Alien Isolation soundtrack?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That was it. Finally came out after 10 years, and I'm actually going to do a thing that kind of similar to my Top Gear thing of how we made the Alien Isolation score, because that was a wonderful collaboration. But also it was the thing that convinced me that computer games weren't really for me, because I love working on the nuance of actors' performances. That's the thing that gives me the greatest high of telling you what's going through people's heads and stuff. And I feel that computer games is still a little bit limited in that thing. There was an actual moment where I went, this is a bit flawed for me, and it was the reveal on LV426 is the planet. It was the reveal of the derelict, that really iconic structure, and we created this insane bit of Ligeti-esque stuff where the PDF, you can't actually read the score because every single different player in the 90-piece orchestra had something different to play, and then it all combined into this insane orchestral unison. But we couldn't use it because there was always the possibility that someone might turn their back and walk in the opposite direction. So you couldn't anticipate and build up to this reveal. So that for me was like, it still doesn't offer me the ability to have the power that you can have as a composer. Jay, I'll return to you, and then we've got Santiago and John and Charles waiting to come in as well.
Just gonna point out about what you just said about the score. There is a way that you could have done it, but it's a lot of programming, and I guess you guys were not ready for that. Okay, the conversation moved on since I raised my hand, so I'm gonna go backwards very punctually. Martin left, but I feel like sometimes when you're starting, you do have to diversify, because I did a short film a couple of years ago, and I had to do many different styles of music within the film. So I guess that's the thing. Going back a little bit further about, I didn't thank you for the shout out on your last video with my sample library. Thanks for that one. Sad that you didn't find the secret layer, because there is a secret layer somewhere in there. But for anybody who has it, if you just up the modulation wheel, you will find it. I'm Christian, by the way. I might, depending if money permits, I might be in the UK at the end of July for a show with a band that I used to play with in LA. And if it's all right, I would love to buy you a coffee if I can be around there.
Absolutely.
Super Booth, the Roland has a new keyboard that's like fighting Nord. Might be worth checking out. Is around the price range of the Nord, but it is kind of doing the same.
I've written the clickbait title already. Roland v Nord.
Yes.
Who will survive?
That is the thing, because they do kind of the same thing. It's the price range is around the same. Also, Roland went after Nord with that one. It even looks the same. It's red, so it's
that was the cleverest thing that Nord did was color their keyboards red, because you'd see players playing them live, and you go, "Ooh, the red one." Yeah. My favorite band, they use that one.
And churches love their Nords. I still don't know what for. I haven't figured it out.
Swiss Guard.
Right. Wait. So a quick answer to Michael. Yeah, don't do Spotify. just don't. No. I think we all can agree that it's just bad.
It's a utility.
It's helpful. It's helpful to send it to people, I guess. But I use YouTube also, YouTube Music and YouTube, and everything that I post on YouTube is transfers like immediately to YouTube Music. So if anybody has that, you can send them that, or it'll just open the video on YouTube. So that could be a better. You're not going to make money out of it, but.
There's good, if you go to Jack Conte's, he's the founder of Patreon. If you go to his YouTube channel, he has some great advice. And I think the thing that he returns to time and time again, and it's the one thing I'm sad to say that I don't think is taught very well in colleges when people do these media courses and composing courses. And that is that you are becoming, sorry, I've got something in my throat. You are becoming a businessman. You may be self-employed, you may think of yourself as a musician, as an artist, whatever, but you are running a business. And there are ways in which you can create revenue from a diverse set of possibilities. Working out your resources and how you apply those is a tricky thing. But you are a business. And there are ways in which you can be responsible for your branding and your merchandise and all of these different things. I remember someone on Twitter saying, I didn't learn the piano to sell fucking T-shirts. And you go, well, good luck. But Jimmy Page saw the advantage to monetizing merchandise back in the day. So, just that's a general point. Charles, back to you.
Yes, quick point for Jay and anyone else who's interested. When you reach a dry spell, you need an idea, and I talk about stories. I happen to be narrating a new book. And Jay, if you email me, I'll send you the prologue to the book, because it might give you an idea of something to write. It's strange. It's a horror Western set in the 19th century. That's all I can tell you. But if I send you the prologue, then you can say, what would the music be for this particular thing? Using your core competence that we talked about. And then, Christian, a question that you can slide over for next week, because I've been thinking about this. Some months ago, you were lecturing, I believe, at a university about sampling. And I'm interested in knowing more about what you're doing in that regard, because obviously you're paying it forward to the students and explaining to them the importance of such endeavors. So that's all I've got to say. And when the book comes out, by the way, anyone who is interested, I get promo codes for these books, which I can give away. And you can review the book if you want to. I don't care one way or the other. I don't need the reviews. But well, you know, because it's sort of like what you said, Christian. You can either wring your hands over a comment or a note, or you can do the work, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
But anyway, when the book comes out, I think I'm going to finish up recording today and mastering it, and then the authors might have notes that they're actually corrections, say, for pronunciations and whatnot. But when the book comes out, anyone who asks me for a promo code, I will send them. I think there's different promo codes for the US and different promo codes for England. I'm not sure. And I think I'm limited to 25 for each thing. So when that happens, I'll let you know, and then do what you want. If you want a promo code, you can let me know. So Jay, do contact me. You do have my email, as I recall.
Yeah, I do have it. I'll send
Thanks,
you an email
Charles.
right after we're
Okay.
done.
Okay, so anyway, I've got to go because I've got another appointment, but I've enjoyed it, and happy next week for everyone, and see you next week.
See you
Bye-bye.
next week, Charles. Before I come to you, Merlin, just a little thing that we were going to try for next week is talking about a film. And the film that I've selected, and hopefully that people will contribute and suggest films in future, but the film I've suggested to kick off Film Club is Clute, which is part of Alan J. Pakula's Paranoia trilogy. And not only is it a great film, some amazing photography, great performance, central performance by Jane Fonda, but also has an extraordinary score featuring a type of instrument, or a variant of an instrument, that I've never heard anywhere else. It sounds like a marimba that can be pitch bent, but it's not how it works. So Clute is something that I'll be talking about next week, and hopefully people can contribute to if you manage to get time to watch that. Merlin, over to you.
Yeah, I originally wanted to respond to Martin, but he has since left, so I won't.
He might catch up with the video of this.
Wait, oh, well, yeah. So, I mean, my quick note for him was like, for a short time, I had the privilege to teach at university. And when I did, there was often this advice of developing a style, or, you know, picking a lane in that sense. And what I found, why that's good advice for me, is that, you know, initially, it's really difficult to develop your own style because you don't know it yet. You don't have it. You don't know how to tap into that. But I think on the long run, that's what everybody gets known for. You know, that's why Hans Zimmer sounds like Hans Zimmer no matter what he does. And that's why all the other great composers have that. But I think that comes out over time. And picking a style that is predefined and then working it until you have it, you know, in your muscle memory, I think is a great way to eventually find your own style, because you will then compare in that style to other composers who've worked in that way, and you will eventually learn a little bit about like what it is that you do, this core competence that Charles mentioned. I think that's a way to get at it, and I think that's why this advice goes around. I think it's a little backwards. I don't think that there is much value in in focusing on one particular style just for the hell of it, unless that's already your core competence and what you love. Otherwise, I'm also a generalist, and I like that. I think that works. But I wanted to let you know, for Super Booth, I just had the idea. It's ironic because I'm in Germany, but I'm not going to be at Super Booth this year, sadly, because I have to travel to Portugal and then to Crete. But I think that Cameron, who goes by Venus Theory, is going to be at Super Booth. And I don't know if you've met him before. He's going to be at the UVI booth. But I like to, instead of meeting my heroes, I like to make my heroes meet. And so I figured maybe if you have some time, you guys should talk. I think you might like each other.
Yeah. Is Venus Theory the guy with the amazing voice?
Yes.
Yes.
And he has wonderful production on all of his videos.
Yeah. I have met him very briefly at NAMM, but I should I'll reach out to him and say, listen, we've been suggested we have a blind date, so we have a blind coffee.
Exactly.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I'll jump in just a second. I think if you're in Germany, he's also coming to Soundtrack Cologne, and as well as Christian's brother, for that matter.
Soundtrack Cologne is awesome. Again, if
I haven't been there for years.
Yeah, I think that's a great.
They have a whole video game thing, 9th and to 11th of July. I just got an email a few days ago, and I just pulled it up. Yeah, so it's Venus Theory, The Flight, and Olivier de Rivière. Also cool YouTube walkthroughs of his stuff. So yeah, there's that for those of you in
Nick.
Germany.
And I've been Soundtrack Cologne several times, and it is awesome. It's really, really good. It's not too big, but it's a great way of networking and realizing you're not alone. That's fantastic. We did have a couple of other hands up, but they've been taken down. So Egan, yes.
All right, there we are. Hello.
Hiya.
You had so many points. I've just got to maybe condense it down a little bit. But just a compliment to you, Christian. I joined a while ago with the episode with Andy Gray, and both of you gave me some really good advice, which was basically you can slow down in essence and just find it's okay to enjoy yourself and find your sound, and not constantly trying to like outpace the job market, or so it's called. And that actually worked out really well for me recently, because I managed to hopefully meet up with 2 UK composers, some London-based composers, just to meet up with them. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen. So I guess that's my perspective on a lot of things that we talked about, because I'm obviously still quite young in terms of age and the game, but that it's like most of the times that I've tried to do something and actually push towards like I'm going to really focus on getting this, it's never worked out. And then times where I've actually gone, you know what, I'll just relax and kind of do the things that I'm enjoying at the moment, then suddenly things happen, which is pretty interesting. I mean, I was fortunate enough to meet somebody really high up in the game by pure chance, and I thought, golden ticket, this is it. And then nothing happened.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I kind of let myself off the hook, per se, things started to happen. So yeah, just a quick perspective, and then I guess a question for some advice, just any pointers of kind of going into a meeting, meeting working composers, people who are actually in the industry, because I don't want to push anything. I just want to learn from them. So I don't know if you have any insights on what potentially I could do.
Well, you touched on a couple of things there, Egan, and I honestly feel that when I haven't been treating it like a race, I think that it probably improves my demeanor. So I don't have that kind of desperation, which is just naturally unattractive to people. the other thing I've noticed, there's a very successful composer, I won't mention their name, but they are really treating it like a race. And as a consequence, they're really getting up the nostrils of other composers. And I really do think if there's any group of people who are going to help you out as a composer, that's other composers. That is the consistent line. I don't think we should ever expect to have a relationship like John Williams and Steven Spielberg have. It's a very rare thing. You know, you only need to look at Alfred Hitchcock and Bernard Herrmann. They had their time and it ended badly. But so I think that having the correct kind of approach and demeanor with other composers is really important. So, but the other thing is I think that it's a bit scary if people feel that you're wanting their help. So I think it's going in with how can I help you? Having some ideas up your sleeve of things that you can offer. Oliver Patrice Vader met me at a seminar that I was doing at BAFTA. And he'd met me once before, and I remembered him because he was a smiley, kind of very friendly guy who appreciated the fact that I owned a Wurlitzer. And he came up to me and he said, "Christian, you look absolutely exhausted." And I said, "I'm just desperate. I've got so much on and I just don't have enough hours in the day." And he goes, "Well, let me help." And I went, "Okay then." And that was the beginning of his journey into Spitfire and beyond. But he did it in a way that was not, "Oh, let me help." It was like, "Mate, do you not need a hand?" Like, it was empathetic. So I think that's, and it's 50% lunch. Being a likable, agreeable person who people want to be literally not literally, but kind of in the music trenches with is really important. And being there to help is I think a way of garnering people's affection. And I've had experience of assistants who just behave like they want my job, and that's not a very nice environment to be in, really, with someone who thinks that they're in a race with you and think, when you're getting those horrible notes like the one I mentioned from a director, are kind of sneering in the background going, "Well, I wouldn't have got a note like that. I would have done better." And it's like, well, you don't really know until you've been at this lark for about 5 or 6 years what you're truly up against. So I think going in with the attitude that you're going to learn and kind of listen and observe is great, alongside with the "I'm happy to roll up my sleeves." And, even if it's just make you a cup of tea or go around to the shops for you, I'm happy to do anything that you want. And that kind of willingness to help and empathize, I think, is a really crucial thing. But it is, I think, really important to remember that it isn't a race. And your fellow composers, whilst we may be in competition with each other, always see that as a means of artistically us pushing each other forward. We're all taking this chalice of music on. We don't start at the beginning. We start from where everyone else left off. So that's we're, if anything, we're on a relay team running the same race. And I think that might be quite a good opportunity to kind of leave it there, really. Pavel, you just raised your hand, mate.
Sorry, I'll not take long. I was just gonna say you should go and teach that to the academies for composers, because it's something that was so upside down. It's like where I was. It was for classical composition, but I don't think it's any different because they have a department for film scoring, and they also have jazz department and all that stuff. But the way everyone was so competitive, but even the teachers and everyone was kind of rooting against each other, it was just horrible. And I'm so glad I got out of there. And it was just so toxic. And I think I don't know why. It seems like it's a tradition there almost, or it's like cheered for, to have that behavior. And I think someone needs to change that, because it's just not good for anyone.
Yeah, I think always when there's limited resources and limited opportunities, there is always the opportunity for success through theft, which is basically, you know, when you're just trying to get above someone else, there is a point at which you're taking food from someone else's table. I mean, something I've experienced, I guess, since the pandemic is this extraordinary and very rare type of energy called strength. And strength is it's a non-transactional thing, because by giving other people strength and helping, you feel stronger yourself. So it has a duplicating effect. And I believe in the better human nature, which is strength in numbers. And I think that by offering help to others, you will feel stronger. You will help yourself. You can steal, and I've experienced people like finding out. You know, I've seen an orchestrator conduct a session for another composer, get off the orchestra stand, reach into their bag and pull out a demo CD for that same director. And I just think that's, you know, and lo and behold, didn't get a gig from that director because they exhibited a very unpleasant side of humanity. But that's out there. I don't know if we're going to behave like that. Let the agents do all that crap. We'll just help each other, eh? On that note, I'm going to sign off. David, let's come back to you next week because I've got a daughter who wants to do, when people buy merch, we put pins on the map and then look at where people live. Not like their houses, but like the cities that they live in. That would be weird and creepy. Anyway, on that note, listen, love to you all and look forward to seeing you next week. If you can, grab a copy of Klute, spelt with a K, Klute, directed by Alan J. Pakula. That will be something that we'll maybe focus in on alongside some key cues and the amazing set of instruments that were used in the creation of that score. So enjoy it and see you next week. Bye. Lots of love.